All right, it is 6 o'clock and we are called to order. The Community Diversity Engagement Committee is now called to order. Ms. Wilson, will you please call roll or take roll or for the record?
Okay, I guess I'll go on the order. Tammy Kins. Here. And Tyus Roddick. Here. Jill Guess.
Here.
And Chair Laura Reed.
Here.
And Vice Chair Benita Casson.
Here.
Thank you. And Council President Shani Starr.
Here.
And Navaya Music.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So we are missing Carrie Brown and Stephanie Cross. Thank you. Yes. So.
They did contact me and told me that they couldn't make tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, so first of all, welcome to Jill Gust, who is our newest member. She's been appointed by Councilor Kohler, and so welcome. We're excited to have you with us and doing this work, so thank you. First item of business is since it is the new year, we are going to be electing a new chair and vice chair. So with that, I would entertain nominations. I would like to nominate Thais Roddick as chair. I would need a second for that.
Second that.
Okay, any other nominations? All right, all in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you chair. Do you want to take over the rest of the meeting, or do you want to start next month?
Whatever you would like me to do.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and have you start?
Okay.
You pass that along over there.
So then I call for,
Nominations for vice chair.
okay, so anyone would like to nominate someone for vice chair? I would like to nominate Benita Picasso.
Second.
Anyone else?
Any other nominations? Okay.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, it's passed. We have elected chair and vice chair. Do we have any other specific treasurer or any of that? No, right? Okay.
I apologize, I couldn't hear who was nominated for vice chair.
Benita Picasso, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then you nominated her?
And I second.
And
And Tammy seconded too, right? No, third, no, okay. So then we go to approval of minutes?
Yes.
Okay, no, strategic plan, sorry, my bad.
Typically, it should be the minutes.
Okay,
John, if you could reverse that for next time, just because it's taking care of business kind of thing.
so folks had a chance to review the minutes from January meeting. Any comments, edits?
December.
Today's January, I'm so sorry, see? Yes, 2024, December 2023, anyone has any edits to it? Nope. I think the only edit I have, Dawn, is IRCO, I think is Immigrant and Refugee Community of Oregon. Not Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, so page 3. That's about the only edit I saw, just for accuracy.
so you said it should read immigrant and refugee?
Immigrant and Refugee. How does it read now? Sorry. I think you said community organization, it should be Community of Oregon. I believe, so. Of Oregon, yes, not community organization. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve? Sure.
I just had a clarification more than a correction, but I mentioned this to Ms. Picasso. For Child Abuse Prevention Month, There is typically a contingent of organizations that come to the city council meeting and do a presentation already on like the status of data and the work going on in Marion County. So I just wanted the record to show that there already is a presentation for that month.
Awesome. Benita, you're in charge of that one, right? So,
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Of course.
So thank you. So the committee member assigned to this is just in charge of making sure whoever is there. So even if it's a matter of contacting the mayor and asking, clarifying that there is an organization scheduled to come in that day. So we don't have to actually present, we just need to.
We might want to make a clarification then on the list of who's presenting versus just making sure, because it's been both and so I think that a clarification on that process would be appropriate on the list.
In what form?
Maybe another column that says or a little asterisk by the name, then it denotes who's presenting. Or if the person's presenting, or if it's just this right here leads me when I read it that every one of these people here are doing a presentation like we've done in the past.
So maybe we can add a column says CD community member, and then another column with invited organizations or presenting if there are any.
I don't know that we would know that much ahead, except that one, right?
And the Daughters of American Revolution, I believe, as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, you would know that one.
September.
Yeah. So if it's typically like Constitution Week, we know that the mayor invites the Daughters of the American Revolution. I think that typically the mayor is also invited Chair Pigsley from the Siletz tribe to come and present on one of the months. So maybe it's just double checking if there's already a historical or a traditional presentation that comes and does one of those months.
So would we then just rename the column CD committee member in charge of assuring a presentation is scheduled? That's pretty long.
Councilor Reed, whatever you want it to say, I'm just saying that when
Would that be clear?
It looks like this is the person presenting.
Yeah. So would that be clear if we just, or maybe you're right, maybe just an asterisk after member would be good, and then down at the bottom, member will member will assure a presentation is scheduled or will
Member will present or invite a guest to
Yes.
present on their behalf.
That works. Yeah. So if we could just get that information there with the asterisk, then we can keep it simple, and that would suffice.
Yes.
So then do I have a motion to pass minute with corrections? Or do we have to bring it back with corrections?
I don't,
Corrected as approve as amended.
Okay.
so moved as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, it's passed. So now we go to strategic plan. And we were requested to review and provide input, and I believe the city needs input by the 26th of January, that's correct?
Council Chair, that is correct. In your packet, there is a copy of the strategic plan. This is the same version or very similar to the one that we saw at the last meeting. In response to the really tight deadline that we had before, we've expanded it out until at least the 26th. If we don't feel like the feedback has been sufficient at that point, we'll consider expanding it beyond that. But there is a website link that you can go to and provide comments. We're specifically looking at, do the organizational mission, vision, and values resonate and reflect where the organization should go in the next 5 years? Do I see the work of this committee reflected in the strategic plan goals and actions? And what needs to be changed, improved, or better clarified? And finally, are there any items missing from the action plan? So those are the key components. If you want, we can go through the strategic plan tonight, although we did go through it at our last meeting. So I'm open for whatever direction you'd like to go.
We could use this time for discussion. Did you receive any feedback or any questions from us?
I've not received anything from the committee. We have received a few survey results back already.
Are there themes that we can discuss on those?
I haven't seen the actual results. I've just seen the numbers come in. And at the last go-around, I think we had about 12 responses, I believe, at the first cutoff. And I think we're up to about 30 now.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Reed.
Thank you. I'm a little confused about do you get names attached to these surveys when they're returned?
I do not know.
Okay.
But there is a
Because
box.
I used that link and gave some feedback as well as an email. Did anybody else do that?
I did.
Okay. Okay, so that is your preferred method of gathering information is the website link?
That is correct.
That we
and
can
that
have
way
all that information and that our consultants, that's what they tap their information from?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Has it been put in, translated into Spanish yet?
Is in process, yes.
What does that mean?
We sent it off last week to have it translated, and I've reached out to the professional interpreters who is doing the translation for us today, and I have not heard back from them.
So we didn't get it, like, when we sent it to them, did we ask for a timeline or give them a deadline on when it was going to be returned?
They initially said they thought it would be back early this week.
And is that the same for the survey?
Correct.
Thank you.
Was the letter also translated?
Yes, it was.
Do we want to go through feedback here, or do you prefer to do it via the link?
Yeah, the link, so that way it says, I think that's the preferred.
Okay.
If I
Yes, Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple of things. Mr. Brown had asked that this come before all of the committees this month, and the committees look through this through the eyes of, or through the lens, rather, of whatever they're in charge of. And I think that in this letter, this could be translated to the committee. So, if you want to think of this, and would it be appropriate to do one as a committee member if it differs from one as an individual, or are those pretty much just the same?
I would say if you wanted to do two, that would be fine.
Okay. So it just depends on how you're looking through these and seeing these, whether you want to do this as an individual community member, or if you want to do this as a committee member. Both might be preferred, but maybe it's the same. Maybe you don't have any, maybe there's no differentiation there. So just as you go through this, look through both lenses. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is when I discussed this with Mayor Clark in terms of what she would like, how she would like this committee to be involved in the strategic plan. She said that particularly in goal number 4,
Engaged community.
yeah, engaged community. She would like to see a group of action items, because a lot of people are frustrated with this committee because it doesn't feel like we've done anything, and we've been waiting for a long time on this strategic plan to come in. We're still working on getting this finalized and so forth. But in terms of going forward, that is what the mayor has asked, is that we take this strategic plan once it gets finally approved and come up with an action plan in terms of this committee and focusing on goal 4. But there may be other things that we may want to weigh into too. So I would think that would be
A good exercise.
well, yeah, and kind of the goal for this at least the first part of this year. We'll see what the process is.
Clarification question. The order in which they're listed isn't a priority list, correct?
No.
Okay, so maybe we do a prioritization exercise on which ones we tackle first?
That would be part of the action plan, I would
Okay.
think.
about creating a way to, like a project management plan, a way to track what we're doing? So that everybody has access to it, we can all modify it and add notes when we need to, just to kind of get everybody on the same page and keep process moving forward.
I think we
Kinda
had
like a
touched
living-
bases before on that, and there's some guidelines on what we can and cannot do.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we did have some discussions when we were planning the city party, and we run into limitations that we have to do most of our deliberations in open public meeting. So we can't really do a lot of business behind closed doors. So if there's some way that we can do it, public facing, maybe on the website or something like that, that may be an option. I can circle back again with our city attorney to see if they have any additional ideas.
Did the consultant provide any guidelines on how to tackle some of these? Did they do a prioritization when you were working through it, or no?
No,
Just a list of deserts, and then we decide how to tackle them? Okay.
correct.
Some work to do in 2024. Careful what you wish for.
What about putting together like mini work groups, or 2 or 3 people to kind of work on each task, and then coming together and talking about what we've covered, or like the survey idea. Everybody come up with 2 or 3 questions, bring it together and see how that works, or different ways we can engage. Can we create like a newsletter or something, a brochure, or something that tells people who we are and what we're doing and what we're looking for in the engagement process? Ways to contact us to share that insight.
I think the website is gonna be the best, like forward-facing in communication.
So what do we do for the people who don't use technology? Because I have like 30 people in my group, in my association, right off the top of my head, that don't use technology whatsoever. Everything they learned from Jackie and I talking to them, or from me printing out a newsletter and dropping it off.
What if we tackled the prioritization as a committee and then brought our recommendations to community members to validate or ask for input that way? I don't think we can tackle 11 goals in 1 year, right? This is a 5-year plan or 3-year plan?
5.
5-year plan. So we could decide on a prioritization exercise which resources we have, how easy are they to implement, and bring it to the community so that we can get feedback on, is this the right track, or are there others that you would prioritize? Yes, Mr. Wood?
It's specific to the strategic plan, the survey itself, we can print those out and give out copies if you'd like those, hard copy. As far as your prioritization, if you do go through that exercise and we prioritize things, we could do hard copies of that as well.
Awesome. How are the other committees tackling their specific goals?
Good question. We're the first committee kind of out of the gates.
Okay. So maybe we can also get input on how they're tackling it and see if there's a consensus of making decisions? Like the blueprint or some way of kind of tackling this? Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can
So-
I ask a clarifying question? Oh, are we getting this fixed? This microphone?
Is that your clarifying question?
Nope. Nope. It's been an issue for a very long time. I guess when I looked at the agenda, it says review draft strategic plan review. So are we, but I noticed that we did it in December. So are we not reviewing the strategic plan?
We are. This is the updated version. So there was some feedback that you received by December 18th. 8th? Okay. And then you updated, and this is the revised latest draft, and you're hoping to get feedback by the 26th of January so that you have an approved final version, right?
I don't know if it'll be the approved final version at that point, but at least we'll have another round of feedback in.
But I thought we were supposed to be reviewing it as a committee tonight. Like that was, am I missing what we talked about, that it was supposed to come back? And I'm looking at City Manager Brown. I thought we were supposed to go through the plan as a committee and review it and give our feedback. That was our topic for tonight, correct? Okay, so that's what I wanted to make sure we
Okay.
get done today. Okay.
So anyone has any feedback or things they would like to bring up?
Well, I would suggest we just go through it page by page.
Okay.
Tim, what languages are we having it translated? Is Spanish the main that we're looking at?
That is correct.
So Tim, if there are other actions in the different goals that we identify as potentially being able to provide input, should we also flag those?
I would think so, yes.
Okay.
Feel free to comment on any part of the document.
So there is one, the one I would like to suggest on goal 1, and then a few on goal 3, and I'm gonna suggest it as well so we can talk about it brainstorming. So the goal 1, the strengthen relationships between police department and community members, that might be something we provide input or feedback or ask our community folks on ideas. And then on number 3, 3.4, partner with Chamber of Commerce. We have Jill now as part of the committee, and the leveraging the event center as a tool for economic development, and revising purchasing policies within state law to support local businesses. And again, that could be part of the prioritization when we will look at that exercise. And I think all of 4, I mean, if that was the special ask of us. Yes.
One of the things that we discovered when we discussed this in council was that this document is, I'm going to say the primary audience is the staff in terms of, there's a lot of things here that people may not be familiar with, the Willow Lake Settlement Agreement and so forth. And so there's some, and this is one of the things that we commented on, that we need to make this more, I guess, community understandable, instead of relying on some of the jargon or more specialized language of the staff. And so I think that might be a helpful thing for this group too, to say, hey, I don't know what this is. How can we clarify that to the public at large?
Okay. So for instance, if I can interpret and just because of my day job experience, the revised purchasing policies within state law to support local businesses is that we have procurement that allows us to direct award to certain businesses at a certain amount, that we don't have to do competitive bidding for like catering and things like that, so that local businesses can earn more of our business?
Potentially, yes.
Well, the flip side of that, though, is we don't want to make this cumbersomely long, to be able to explain.
On the language piece?
Yeah. So for instance, under 3-8, revisit the Willow Lake Settlement Agreement. I didn't know what that was. To create more developable land, maybe having some kind of glossary or something to just kind of clarify some of these things. Or maybe, you've already got an asterisk devoted to city council priorities, but maybe some way of just perhaps a glossary might be appropriate.
Description, so people are.
Yeah,
can
so
understand
if they want to understand that further, they can go back to that information.
Oh, I love this mic so much. So question on the document thank you, Nevaeh, bless your heart. Question on this document itself. When it is a living document on our website, I'm thinking maybe in a glossary is one potential, but you see, like in my world, we do lots of like live links in our document. So when we have we have standards, and one of them might be something about board governance, and in there we would have a live link to another resource page that has like an explanation of something. So maybe a little different than a glossary, but for example, you're purchasing, the example you said, could we do like live links then, and so somebody could click on the link and it would go to the city's purchasing policy or something. So if one of our community members had a question, and not the entire purchasing policy, but maybe each or certain actions on these would have like a purchasing 101 for the city of Keizer, like how do I become an approved vendor, right? And then almost like an FAQ explanatory statement. But they could click on the link within the strategic plan, and then it takes them to another piece of, more concise information. The Willow Lake thing, right? So there's a hyperlink that it takes them to an FAQ sheet on what does that mean, right? So if we really want to build engagement with our community, I would think we need to do different things like that so people don't feel like they don't know what we're talking about. That Willow, again, purchasing, I wouldn't know how to tell somebody how to become an approved vendor other than call Tim. But right, that can't be the answer for everything. So I want to make sure that we're making it user friendly for our entire community, and not making it seem like it's
A barrier.
It's a barrier, right? And I would think that it would be, like when we talk about the renewal of our or the website update that people can choose what language they want to view it in when they go to the homepage, right? So there's whatever, like the top 3 or maybe the top 5 languages that are spoken in Keizer. Like, people can pick, and it's right there on the homepage, in the appropriate language. Do you want to read this in whatever? Yeah, and then you click it, and then it takes them to, like, you just poof, right? It magically turns into whatever the tech people need to do to send it to a page that's translated to the language that they're most comfortable reading. I just think that will help make engagement with the city easier and more end user friendly. So that, I would encourage us to think about that. So a live document.
Great suggestion. Will once we're done with this is approved, will there be goals for year 1? Will there be, so again, how does this get put into action?
Once we have the approved plan ready to go, the city staff will have to get together and start prioritizing based off of budget constraints and staffing constraints and whatnot, what projects we start to work on. I would anticipate we'd probably try to line up as much as we possibly can throughout the 3 to 5 year plan.
And will that be publicized too? So can folks, one of the values is accountability, right?
Yeah,
So-
well, just on an annual basis, at the very minimum, we're going to have to come back to the city council to say this is where we're at in comparison to the plan. So yeah, it will be very public.
So that might also be and how we start our meetings, right? These are the ones we're working this year, kind of, again, for folks that come and attend, these are the things, this is why we chose, and always reiterating it. For this committee, we can't tackle all of them, but the ones we do decide to tackle.
I also think on section 3, so you touch bases on the economic development in businesses and leveraging event centers as a tool for economic development, such a community event. When I think of community event and growth, I also think of youth and sports. And although we do talk about parks, I do see that importance of having or leverage those areas for youth events or sporting events for our community, and so for other cities to also commute into Keizer and get to know and compete. Friendly competition would also provide growth in economic
So maybe we
building in.
ask for the clarification on 3.5 instead of leverage event center, leverage public city spaces? Because if I'm reading this correctly, I'm reading as this event center here in City Hall, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
But if can we expand to Keizer Rapids, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Great addition.
Because that'll not only help in that area, it'll also help with, like, we're working on pickleball courts and the new soccer fields and Keizer Little League. They do all kinds of different things.
Well-
So having all of that included makes it more of a collective impact.
And oftentimes, if you use it as community event and awareness, the word gets out, so it's a way of advertising, right? That space is available, that others can use. So there's that growth portion of it as well.
And when you see, like, you see the increase as well for reassessing opportunity land, so properties that they can expand, keeping that in mind of the expansion. When we talk about business, what businesses are coming in that contribute to the bigger picture of what Keizer is.
Other ways we can engage our community too is to be attending the association meetings and other groups within, that are held within this body, like Keizer United meets here. The Neighborhood Association meeting meets here. There's a few others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But this is one of the core places where people gather. So knowing what meetings here, maybe we can engage more in that side of things as well. Just like the chamber, we should be attending, speaking for myself, because I'm really bad at getting over there, 2 meetings that are going on at the chamber. Latino Business Alliance. We should be more engaged in all of those areas so that we can bring that back to the collective impact and know how we can support each area better than what we're doing.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so, well, as I'm sure that you know, the city councilors are also assigned those different, you have city councilors going to, assigned as liaisons to the chamber. We have city councilors taking turns going to the Latino Business Alliance. So the city councilors are all already performing that function. I think what you're suggesting is slightly different, but,
It is because I'm not a city councilor.
yeah, but I'm just
Not a
saying
city
that
councilor. But it's ways that we can engage so that I can bring the information back to this group for people who don't know, or to West Salem Neighborhood Association, or West Keizer, or Southeast Keizer, anywhere that we would go so that we can share that collective impact of what's going on. Where's the need? Where's the shortfalls? How can we help pick up the slack? How can we make things more accessible for language is one of the biggest barriers that I've run across. Since we've done this, Jackie and I have gone and talked to neighbors and found out we have a whole lot more languages in my community than I ever knew. No idea we were missing the boat being able to translate in those other languages. It's minor things that we can do to impact change and bring it to a bigger collective collaboration, maybe might be a better word.
So I think, again, that's the part where we would do a prioritization and then bring things. So just off what you're saying, that there's, that developing, that 4.9, whatever, that we have, develop a plan and policy for how we identify and prioritize local vendors for translation, like that could be, again, when we look at it, and I'm gonna try to, just for clarity piece, when I look at prioritization, I'm looking at level of effort, level of impact, right? So there's a quadrant, and we usually go, what's easy to do that will provide the most impact? That's usually what you tackle in first. What's super hard to do, but it will have a lot of impact, you do that last. So I think those are some of the things we can take a look at. We are an advising board, so there are certain things that we, as much as I know us so far, we would love to take the bull by the horn and do it. We can't, right? That isn't within our scope of work, but how can we prioritize the things that we know, maybe with your help and like these are achievable, right? These we can do with the resources we have. This one, we don't have the resources and we're gonna need to ask X, Y, or Z. But to your point, once we have identified those, we should do a sanity check, right? Because we should go and say like, is this what you, or no, oh my gosh, we should focus on this better. Okay, then let's go move this way. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On 4.9, there is a part of that action that strikes me. I guess I don't know if concern is the right word, but creating a policy for how and when we use the services. I guess my question is, if we're gonna publish something for the public, shouldn't it always be like,
Translated?
yeah,
I think so. I think this piece, and if I'm reading into it, so again, that could be a good, like, why is this written the way it is that you have to have a competitive process to award to whom is going to translate at what time and how. I can't just be like, oh, they were the first to answer, I'm gonna give them the business, or I only give business to this person or that person. So, do you wanna add some clarifications? That why you're moving up here? Okay, then I'll pass the mic to you.
Thanks. One of the reasons it's a goal in the plan is because we haven't done it for decades. We're behind. So the reason it's an action step in the plan is we got to figure out how to do it. And there's no budget for it right now. So that's why it's a priority. We can't just say we're going to do every language or even the top 3 language because we don't have a budget for it right now. So that's why it's in the plan is, okay, we don't have the capability right now, but we got to figure out how to do it.
And how to do it equitably, right? Because it can't just be to the same business over and over again.
And I like the quadrant approach that you use, the low effort, high impact, and then high effort, low impact. Yep. That would be a great way to look at it, and I think that's one of the ways the DEI or CDEC committee, the CDEC, could help with that prioritization. Where do we start? Because we've got thousands of documents.
I would love then for like that to be a conversation with this committee, because I think if I were in, I think we need to step back and think about how that reads to somebody that is part of a community who doesn't, would like the material translated or needs it in a different language, because the way that reads to me, and I get it, it's about how it's worded, is it's not, and I know because it's in the strategic plan, it is a priority for us, but if I were a part of a community and I read the how and when we use those services, I would think, it would make me feel like I don't deserve to have this, like, this document we might have to decide if we're going to translate this document. So I think it's not so much, it's just about the wording and how it lands. And we've talked about this before, right? The intent versus the impact of what we say and what we're writing and what we're doing. Because if we want our communities to feel valued and included, we have to think about how it's written and how it's landing with people. And I think the way that this piece is worded, it could run the risk of making certain communities feel less valued. Like maybe if that community is lucky, they'll get it translated. And that, I don't think that is the intent.
Yes, Tammy.
So Jackie and I actually ran across that this past week when we were talking with community members about meeting them where they're at. And some of the problems that we have encountered are strictly language barriers, which is why Jackie and I decided, well, let's put our brochure in Spanish. And I have gone through that process. It is not easy to learn the differences in that aspect. But it's one of the things that have actually helped us grow with our online setting, because people will send us a message and at the bottom of it, we know you have to translate it, we'll give you a few days. So we put it through, I've been using Google Docs at the moment because it just, Google Translation, it works pretty well. Some of the wording gets a little awkward. But it's allowed us to make new connections and build on those connections to impact a community that before that I wouldn't have been able to talk to. Jackie and I are getting ready to take a class and learn how to speak it better so that we can impact a larger community. It's minor baby steps that we can take so they don't feel left out. Some of the things that we were told when we talk to people is they're not going to understand me if I show up. We have a lady that is deaf and uses sign. She can't show up because she can't read lips from out there to see what we're doing up here. So we need to figure out where to meet our community and where that happy median is. And how do we implement that without breaking the bank, so to speak? Can we utilize people in our community to translate?
So I think this is a part where we could, but there's the policies, right? There's a probably city attorney will be like, well, no, you have to, right? If I'm reading this. So, but I would second what you said, and this is the thing I would like us to think through. Now, I think agreeing with Councilor Starr, there's a lot of improvements we could do on language. So maybe this is the action item, concrete action item for us. Tim is from now until the 26th, go through this and suggest improvements on how we would say this so that it is more accessible and or have a guide to it. But what I would urge us to think through, and I know it's a little bit harder sometimes because of risk aversion, but progress is better than perfection, so something is better than nothing. Even if it is Google Translate, it's come a long ways in the last, and I can speak to it because I speak Spanish. It has come a long ways in the last 10 years, so do not be scared of Google. It might still have some bloopers in there, but for the most part, it's better to have something than to not have anything. So, yes. Adam?
That's good to hear, because I was looking into this last week, researching about this, thinking about changing our contracts and agreements into different languages. And if they get arbitrated, they go to a judge that more likely will not speak that language. When our attorney reviews contracts, he knows exactly what the words mean. When he gets a translated version of a contract back, he doesn't know that it says the same thing or not. He's trusting that the translator did the work. So we're learning about when the professional translators take on the liability that if there's an error, and that's what I learned this week. I did not know. I thought, well, who's responsible and which language prevails? But actually, the translators take on that liability. I see Benita's shaking her head. It sounds like you've been through that.
It's 100%. It's not, I would, improvement is important, but when you are communicating with the community itself, you want to make sure that you have the right language or the right word. One word can really jeopardize and cause much more harm than aid or assistance. So,
But in my research, I've found that Google Translate is up to between 90 and 94% accurate. And if I was visiting Spain or Italy and I was able to use my phone to translate something 94, I'd be pretty happy. But I don't know if that's the right attitude to have. But I think the big deal, though, is that we don't have this capability now, so it's important that it's a strategy, and I see where you're saying that it's not worded right.
it's a translation versus interpretation.
So do we want to continue reviewing, or should we move on and just have the action item? Yes?
I have one more under 4 that you can send me to, I don't know, timeout if you want. But
that an option? I didn't know that was.
I'm giving it to you. I'm making it an option for you. So under, we talk about goal 4 under, and I did not put my contacts in, so bear with me. Goal 4, we talk about an engaged committee, and I just read through all of the actions. Where, and maybe it's somewhere else, but it's not under 4, do we have an action where under engaged committee, it's having us, one of the actions is to look at the other pieces of the strategic plan to identify where we need to look at, because some of it's for staff, some of it's not for staff in the strategic plan. So I'm wondering if we can put an action in that looks at how we review, or that gives us a goal to loop in the CDEC in the conversations or in the actions. Because, for example, and I know you mentioned it, I think it was you, Thais, that mentioned strengthening the relationships with the police department and community members, right? So you said we should be involved in that, and you're right. But but that isn't in the plan as an action to go back and select or make a note on which one of these should come back through or include the CDEC. For example, develop, something like the citywide emergency management plan. Somewhere it should be noted that it come back through this group to make sure that our messaging is inclusive, or when it comes, and I know that is worded for staff and a staff-driven project, but part of emergency management is also making sure that we're engaging the community and communicating with them. And so I'm just not seeing where the connection is in our actions to identify which parts of the strategic plan should come back through the CDEC, or make sure the committee is engaged in the work of getting it accomplished. And I'm just using those two as an example. I'm sure there's more throughout the plan.
So I think that's also part of our homework, right? To go back and asterisk the ones that we want to bring. We've got a clear request from the mayor on number 4 for sure, right? That was for the action, but not limited to.
Right.
So that's the piece where we should go back and say, I want to know more about this one, I want to know more about this one. And then on the prioritization piece, maybe that is one of the ones that we do, like this is super important, right? And it's something that we can do relatively easy. And I'm not saying that it is, but I'm just hypothetically speaking. So it becomes part of our to-do list.
And I would like that in the document, so where it says action lead and when it's accomplished, there's a place for us to make sure it's a checkpoint, right? We can say we want it to come back through here, but I think it needs to be an action item to identify which ones come back through here.
Yes.
I would think that kind of goes to the level of strategy rather than, we've got the goal, we have the action, and then I think the strategy, it would be more of a strategy piece of it. So, I mean, none of the other committees are mentioned in these, like transportation, mobility, and that would be a traffic safety bike ped committee and so forth. So I don't know that it needs to be part of the plan, but it should be definitely part of the execution, a strategy to accomplish the plan. Because, this is an overarching document, and, as Thais says, we can take the initiative to give that input on it, because also this is not a deciding committee. This is, an advising committee.
I think that it should be part of the plan. I also, because of transportation and mobility, Jackie and I go everywhere. Mobility is one of the biggest barriers for the older people in the older generation and people in wheelchairs and using walkers. Jackie and I have seen people fall on the sidewalks because of cracks in the sidewalks, holes in the sidewalks. We saw a lady fall off into the road the other day. So all of it is part of, in my perspective, of what we're supposed to be advocating for within our community. It's not just this section or this section with community engagement. And part of this is a learning curve for me because most of you know I use wheels for long distances. That is very new. I'm used to being able to walk down the road and yeah, you trip on a pothole every so often, not a big deal. It is a big deal when people are falling off the sidewalk because the curb isn't at the right level, or the ADA sidewalk isn't properly designed and somebody's chair starts to go off. Unfortunately, Jackie and I have seen a wheelchair fall over. We actually stopped and helped him up. We've seen somebody almost tip over in front of Jiffy Lube on River Road, who uses a stick to get around because he's totally paralyzed and only has his mouth. That's where we can impact our community. It's the people that nobody really looks at.
So, yes, Tim?
So if I'm hearing correctly, what you're really asking for somewhere in this document, I'm not sure, we'll probably have to go back to the consultants and ask, but some formal review process, at the appropriate time, whether it's getting feedback up front or towards the end of the project process, whatever the item is, to make sure that we haven't missed something.
And maybe prior to execution, so when you get to strategy, prior to execution, bring it here, or if it's even better, when we have it, do we have an equity lenses that we can go through whatever the decision is, right? To say, is it, and I know that's on the list to do for the consultant, so something to consider.
And I don't think it hurts to come to the committee on the front end and at the end of a project or a process or, whatever that might be. Like the one about improve the relationship between the community and the police department. So have that as an agenda item at the very beginning, get the feedback, hear what people think, and then put the plan together or develop the plan or what have you. And then once it's near completion, bring it back and say, did we hit the mark? Did we miss the mark? Where are the gaps? That kind of thing. I don't think it hurts to do it on the front and the back end.
Absolutely. I'll just, like I say, I'll reach out to our consultants and figure out where that should be formalized in the document.
Yeah, thank you.
So can I move us along? Sorry. It's my first one.
What was that?
I said, can I move us along to the next
Yeah.
item? Okay. So we're now going to community organizations. Do we have any updates to be made by staff? I feel like we visited this enough. I know that someone added the links, was that you, for the schools? Thank you for doing that.
Are we going to do the approval of minutes before we move on to the community organization?
We did that already.
Sorry, I was
It's okay.
thinking, never mind.
That was a quiz. You were trying to see if I was paying
Yeah,
attention.
I was, you're right.
Yes, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Chair. For the community organizations, maybe going forward, we'll just have this as a standing document, and we'll continue to build it out as we go, but I don't see any additional things that you folks need to do with it until we figure out what we're going to do with the
And
organization.
it's a great list, and we can say, like we said about feedback, if we need to get feedback, this is a great list to start with, right? We can't be thorough, but we can certainly be a starting point of where we go to ask for feedback, so. Yes.
Thank you.
How do I refer, Councilor Reed? I'm just looking at, yes, I can't call you Laura, Councilor
That's
Reed.
fine, yeah. Well. Is this on the website, this list?
Well, it would be under our meeting materials, but we
So
don't have
as
a
part of
specific-
our meetings and packets and so
Correct.
forth.
But we talked about it not being a living document because of the burden of updating it and constantly making sure that the contact person is correct. So that's impossible from a resource perspective.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you.
Dawn?
I just wanted to clarify under churches at the last meeting, someone had said that they wanted to include the Salem Jewish Synagogue. And the only thing that I found, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is Shabbat Center for Jewish Life. Is that what you all wanted?
And then I
I
think
think that was Carrie.
it is a synagogue.
Synagogue.
Synagogue. Senin.
I think it's SY.
Okay. Can you help me, Nevaeh?
Not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it's Synagogue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going the Portuguese version, so.
Sorry.
All right, so can we now move on to committee reports? Tammy? Right, you had one?
Yeah, I sent mine in.
Yes, it's in here. And then we also have the inclusive language and the graph that we provided.
And I think that, I just want to say, I don't think the invoices are supposed to be part of the packet. So and because they have people's addresses on them, I'd like to ask the committee members if we can take them out so that they can be shredded and we don't take them home with us.
I did not even notice.
Yeah. Well, all of, what's the purpose of having them here? Sorry.
The last couple of pages.
Right, but why do we have them in?
That's what we were asking. I don't know that they need to
I
be
don't
there.
think they need
okay.
to be in there. So if
No?
we can just take them off and
Yes,
leave them up
absolutely.
here so they can be shredded because they have contact information.
It's all good. Okay, sorry. Committee reports.
If we could also make sure that those aren't posted as part of the packet, just,
They're not posted, the page numbers aren't on them. I think I just picked it up off the copy machine.
I've done that so many times, it's not a big deal.
Not a big
It's okay,
deal.
I just didn't want to walk out with contact.
There's no trade secrets in there.
Yeah.
It's great pricing, by the way.
I'll make you a deal.
I'm like, that's a good way to advertise.
Tammy, do you want to go through committee reports? Is there any highlights you want to
they can read
provide?
it.
Okay. And then we had the inclusive language. I believe Stephanie provided that. Stephanie Cross.
What was that again?
I believe Stephanie Cross provided the inclusive language handout about how to use people-centered and inclusive language instead of,
The last, okay.
which again, it could be a good guideline for the plan itself. Tim, as we're asking about, like, how can we make it more accessible? And then I know I provided the last one, which again is just more of a wheel for us to consider and think about, but, you know, what people think DEI issues are, representation and trainings, and what it actually does entail, which is a whole host of things. So just, I think we said we were bringing practical applications of DEI. That was one of our action items. So this is, you're just seeing some of the examples folks have brought so far. So any questions, comments on those materials?
No, I like it.
Okay.
and I would like to, you know, and we can do what we want with this, but I would like to see this be prominent in my own binder, you know, this inclusive language. I think this is a great resource. So I'll be,
And
Oh, my goodness.
would this committee be interested in making the recommendation that the inclusive language handout go to the city council and all other committees as well, to people? I think that would be a good, in our advisory capacity.
I second that.
I second that for sure.
Okay. So is that an action item for us, Dawn, or for you to include the inclusive language, to share it with the counselors and with the other committees in Keizer?
what would that look like?
As a best practice, as you're
Yeah, yeah,
creating
but
documents.
What would that look like? How would it appear? Would it be part?
I would think that the staff, like, whether it's Dawn or one of us go to the meeting where this is in their city or in their meeting packet, and we talk about, the importance of using inclusive language. And so the CDC committee wanted committees to have this as a reference, since our recommendation is incorporating that in your meeting language and your conversations.
Yeah, I can take that on because I'm presenting in February, so that if you want to add me as just a little, like a recommendation or suggestion, that work?
So talking,
Yeah.
kind of take it. I think that many of our groups could use that as a primer. Does that
Yeah.
give you clarity?
We wouldn't, would this be something we would need council approval for, to just get these out to like all the chairs of the committees, for instance?
We present it to council for council to approve it to go to all the committees, I would think.
Yes, Mr. Wood?
I don't know that process.
Yeah, that's what I would probably assume. I'll have to check with our city attorney, but my assumption is since you guys would be making the recommendation, it'd first go to the city council, and the city council would direct staff to push it out to all the
Okay.
rest of the committees.
And is it still appropriate for Chair Roddick to present to the council then?
I would think, sure.
As a suggestion, as a best practice, okay? Cool. Great suggestion. All right, so now we move on to interested citizens. Do we have any? No?
Can I ask a question? on
Sure.
that? Why is that at the bottom of the agenda when typically it's at the front?
I'm not sure. But we can put, why don't we make can I make a motion? Ooh. Can we always have the minutes and the interested citizens as like our second and thirds right after the call to order? So we move them up? Will that work? That way if folks just want to talk and then leave, they can do it and not have to go through the whole thing
I second
if they don't
that
want to.
motion.
Okay.
Do you don't need a motion for that?
Can I use this just because it's fun?
Okay.
Sure would.
I think as chair of the committee, you can dictate the order of the
Okay.
agenda, so.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so then I think we go through the assignments, right, for the months. Is there any, we are already making a note to say on the bottom with an asterisk that it's the member will present or invite an organization to present on their behalf. Are there any questions, comments, or requests for change? I know there were a few folks that weren't in the last meeting. Does this look good?
We might want to add a little bit about conferring with the mayor to see if she's already invited.
Okay.
Just kind of loop her into that because, she has traditionally been the one to invite those presenters.
This is the one where you're talking about, we're not in charge of presenting, but making sure that there is someone there.
Yes.
To present that. Okay.
Yep.
So my member will confer with the mayor if she has invited presenters, and then member will present.
For the record, I was telling Benita we'll have a hard time topping last June, and I don't know how we'll manage to do that.
I have full
understand.
confidence in you.
I gave I think it was a really well done speech
Yes, you
in
did.
honor of Pride
was
Month, and I
awesome.
was saying I just don't know how I'm gonna manage to move on and make a better one this year. So
You totally got this.
Confidence.
I have a question on this only because I've been researching for February. We don't offer a stipend if we ask for folks to come and present on our behalf, right?
We do not, no.
So I don't know if this is, I'm not going to ask it right now, but maybe some consideration, just in the sense of, there are some organizations that, and I'm not going to ask them, but for Black History Month, Oregon Black Pioneers, Salem Keizer and CAACP, and others that I I'm not going to ask them because it's their valuable time and effort. And so I will do the research or find others, but that might be something we think about, as in having them come present to provide information, but also compensate them for doing so. So just yes, Chair Reed,
And,
Councilor Reed.
and they might already have, community outreach coordinators, and they might
Sure.
have people who, they might welcome that.
Sure.
It would be nice to be able to offer them something, but, to, I guess, make that decision in their behalf might be a little presumptuous.
Yeah, it's just a little, it's harder at times to ask for folks
Yeah.
to do something without compensating them for their time.
That is part of an equity approach when you're asking people from underrepresented or historically marginalized communities that you do want to offer to compensate them for their time. It is an equity practice.
So again, just something for, and I'm not gonna, we are way over time if we are gonna be strict to time, but just something to think about as we plan on budget and things like that. Not to say we should do it, but just to think about it. So, because I think these presentations are very valuable, and we often have a certain number of folks that attend. Now, I'm gonna do my darn best to present information on Black History Month, but I am not of the community that is being presented, so my ability to do so is limited because I am not part of the community, and I can't speak to their lived experience as some of them could more eloquently do. So I'm just offering that up there. Okay.
One more.
Yes.
And this is a question for Tim. So Tim, what would be the process of getting or requesting a budget for that? Because it's not really,
Well, we're rolling into the budget season now, so
Yeah.
we're kind of opening up the gates, I guess, as far as requests go. I think a couple things to consider. When they're coming to the city council meeting, we're looking for about a 5-minute presentation.
Sure.
If we're looking, something expanded, we want someone to come in and do an hour long.
No.
Then I would say, yeah, we need to pay them for their time, and we need to figure out how much financial support we want to allocate to that. But the process is we're just going to have to work through it during the budget time. We do have a few reserves that we could cash in if we wanted to between now and the end of the year.
Do we have, and maybe this, and Thais, please correct me, and Benita, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not necessarily about the amount that we offer, it's the act of providing and offering us, what we called in the work when we invited people in was a stipend or, a token of, to recognize their time. And it was not anywhere close to the value of their time, but it was the act of recognizing their time is valuable. But correct me if I'm wrong on that.
It's usually like an honorary.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so when for work, if someone asks me to come and present, oftentimes I will. I can't accept an honorary as a public officer, but oftentimes folks will offer, right? So I'll say, I can't take it, thank you very much, but it's a gesture piece, it's not the assumption that your time is not valuable. I think that's
Yeah.
but.
And then can we put that on the agenda item or on the agenda for a meeting is to talk about maybe a budget line item that the committee would like to request in the budget process?
Absolutely.
Okay.
so how much is usually offered?
It really depends, and I don't want to speak without doing some research or consultation. But maybe it is a budget in general for us, like we had talked about other things in here, right? With consultant, with other things, and it could just be a zero based on needs on what we are identifying. But yeah. I don't want to open a can of worms. I'm thinking through because in some of these we have a lot of representation here where we can speak to Latino, we can speak in terms of pride and others, but we won't always. And if this is to educate and enlighten folks, I think that could be a valuable piece. Now, is that the only thing? Is that 5 minutes? No, maybe there's some other ways we can brainstorm and say, please come for 5 and stay past the meeting for Q&A for folks, right? It is expanding it, so it isn't, because I also don't want, I understand the public perception. I don't want it to be you got paid $200 to speak for 5 minutes, right? I can see how some of that stuff can be perceived in the public, but how can we be creative in the sense of we're honoring their time and we're providing that education piece that this committee was created to do. And again, I'm brainstorming out loud, which it's not the forum for in here. So, any other of business? Yes, Mr. Wood.
At the last meeting, you asked me about interpreters and translation services. So I did go out and do some research with, I need to correct myself. I did not talk with anyone at the chamber regarding translation services. I did look through the registry of members, and there is no translation services there. So I wanted to clarify that. Having said that, though, we do have the city has a contract with a company called Professional Interpreters. Their headquarters, I believe, is in Salem. They have about 6 to 8 other branch locations throughout the state. They also hold a state contract.
Yes.
So that's been our primary source of where we go to as far as translation services. And we get a fairly reasonable price. I think the last time I checked, it was like $60 a page, roughly. I guess it depends on also whether it's a very legal, technical type of document as well.
That's good.
So that's the feedback I have. As far as there is other translation services the city does use, we have someone that comes in from municipal court to do translation services and interpretive stuff there as well. The professional interpreters are also the folks that interpret our city council meetings. So if you see us on Facebook doing interpretation, that's them. So that's the feedback we have as far as currently what we're using. Internally within the city, we do have 11 employees that are able to do interpretation. We have Russian, we have Czechoslovakian, and we have Spanish.
Awesome.
Portuguese. Well, that's right, we do have Portuguese. So, who would have guessed? That's my feedback as far as the translation interpretation services go.
Do we have any questions or suggestions? What happens if someone calls in, inbound calls? Do you have folks that can speak on the phone?
Correct, we do.
Okay.
Of the 11 people, I think 9 of them are fluent in Spanish.
There's also another service, if you want to take a look at, called Language Line, and they will do a 3-way call if there isn't someone available to speak the language that the person is speaking. Now it's paid, and I believe it's like a monthly fee of some sort, but just as an option if you do get service calls that you can't answer. Any other business or items? No? I do think, and I'm not going to prolong it, but I'm going to give Jill a chance. We didn't get to do proper introductions in this meeting as a new member. Can we do that in the next meeting and give Jill time to prepare an intro for us?
I second.
Unless you want to do it now. What's your preference?
I do not care. What do you guys normally do for introductions?
So before I joined, you had reached out and said, bring something to say why you're joining the committee, what would you like to see accomplished, your background. So I had some preparation time. So that's why I'm saying maybe wait until, but up to you.
I can do it next time. That's fine.
Okay. And that way it would also give Stephanie and Carrie a chance to hear it firsthand. Does that work? Okay. Awesome. I think that's it. If nothing else, meeting adjourned 7:18.
You did great.
Remind me not to wear white.